Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you at the discussion of mayors that is taking place on the margin of Pact of Free Cities Summit. As you know, the original idea of this initiative, of this pact, is recognizing the responsibility of cities in protecting common values of freedom, democracy, social justice, and human dignity. And these are the topics that our discussions will talk about today. This year, the pact has extended into USA as well, and we are really glad that we have the honor to welcome also American mayors in our discussions. Let's get started, and let me ask Matúš Valo, the mayor of Bratislava, for a few welcoming remarks. Mr. Valo, the floor is yours.
Distinguished mayors, representatives of free cities from around the world, dear colleagues and friends. Allow me to welcome you to the 6th summit of the Pact of Free Cities. We are gathered here in the Hall of Mirrors at the Primate's Palace in Bratislava. It was in this very hall in 1805, after the famous Battle of Austerlitz, that the so-called Peace of Pressburg was signed between France and Austria. I'm not implying anything, I'm just saying and stating a fact. The truth is that I'm always pleased when I can introduce to my guests all the places that reflect the importance of history in our city. Some of them even return the favor with a smile, such as the King of Netherlands, whom I a few years ago showed just a few meters from here during his visit to Bratislava, the house in which the young Mozart once performed. The king smiled and countered that Mozart had also played at his living room. But as you can see, I do not give up. What I want to say is that we are in a place that helped shape our history, and I believe it can also help to shape our future too. I would like to extend a special welcome for the first time to the representative of US cities, Beaverton and Cincinnati. There will be online today also San Antonio, and as a special guest, Minneapolis. What unites us are the values of democracy, which are far stronger and more enduring than the populist steps taken by our national governments. Unlike some world leaders, we still believe in these values. Please feel here as you would among allies and friends. And if you don't mind, I will switch in Slovak for the rest of my speech, so you can use the headphones. Špeciálne by som tu chcel privítať aj primátora Budapešti, pána Karačionyho, ktorého boj s populistickou a autokratickou vládou bol aj jedným z dôvodom vzniku nášho Paktu slobodných miest a pomohol nám sformulovať aj jeho základné ciele. Tými sú najmä sloboda a demokracia. Z Maďarska s pánom primátorom tentokrát prišli aj lepšie správy. Naši južní susedia totiž pred pár týždňami potvrdili starú dobrú pravdu, že klamať malú skupinu sa dá dlhodobo, veľkú skupinu krátkodobo, ale klamať všetkých do nekonečna sa jednoducho nedá. Pán primátor, verím, že aj v Budapešti sa konečne budeme môcť slobodne nadýchnúť a venovať sa najmä tomu, čo je našou prvoradou prácou aj poslaním, rozvoju miest a zlepšovaniu života jeho obyvateľom. Rovnako tu chcem špeciálne privítať aj zástupcov ukrajinských miest Lvov, Kiev alebo Charkov. Tých, ktorí sem prišli naživo, aj tých, ktorí s nami budú diskutovať iba online, keďže ich doma naplno zamestnáva to, čo my ešte ostatní stále nedokážeme dostatočne precítiť. Vojna. Ani každodenné útoky dronov a bombardovanie nezlomili presvedčenie a odhodlanie vás a miliónov Ukrajincov žiť naplnené životy v slobodnej krajine ako súčasti Európskej únie. Je to pre mňa potvrdením, že nič nie je silnejšie ako sloboda a nič nie je dôležitejšie ako naša solidarita, o ktorú sa vždy budete môcť oprieť. Naďalej máte a sľubujem, že aj budete mať našu plnú podporu. Vážené dámy, vážení páni, drahí priatelia, pred pár mesiacmi kanadský premiér Mark Carney na Svetovom ekonomickom fóre v Davose predniesol jeden zásadný príhovor. Povedal v ňom, že poriadok založený na pravidlách vo svete slabne. Dokonca bol ešte priamejší a povedal, že sa nachádzame uprostred rozpadu a nie transformácie. Vidíme to dennodenne aj v demokraciách s dlhou a pevnou tradíciou. Dnes si žiadna krajina, žiadna spoločnosť nemôže povedať, že je imúnna voči populizmu. Súčasťou populizmu, ktorý sa len veľmi ťažko definuje, je to, že jeho hlavným nástrojom je kritika. Kritika všetkého. Len čo sa však populistické emócie prebudia naplno, politika sa začne uberať smerom k obmedzeniu výkonnej moci, autonómie samospráv, nezávislosti súdnictva, médií aj centrálnych bank. Keďže populistické politické vyhlásenia nevyhnutne zlyhávajú, populisti ďalej živia predstavu, že nepriatelia obyčajných ľudí sú ešte silnejší, než sa môže zdať, a že musia proti nim použiť ešte silnejšie zásahy a obmedzenia. To je špirála, ktorú bohužiaľ vidíme a žijeme. Našou základnou výzvou je, že žijeme v časoch silných zmien. Zmien v technológiách, komunikácii, globalizácii, podnikovej štruktúre, pracovných miest, geografického rozdelenia, starnúcej populácie, environmentálnych nebezpečenstiev, pohľadu na manželský zväzok a ďalších. Stres vyvolaný týmito zmenami nie je jednoduché potlačiť, hlavne ak nepoznáme riešenia. Populistický impuls, či prichádza v politickom spektre zľava alebo zprava, zakladá budúce autoritárske režimy, pokiaľ ich včas nedemaskujeme a nenájdeme vhodné odpovede. Takýto rozpad pravidiel sledujeme aj u nás na Slovensku. Toľko sme sa z hodnot v politike vysmievali a považovali ich za slabosť, až nás dnes náckovia v oblekoch poučajú o liberálnom fašizme a politike na 4 svetové strany. Spojenectvá, ktoré vznikali na základe hodnotovej blízkosti, dnes nahradzajú transakčné vzťahy. V politickej komunikácii už nejde o pochopenie a porozumenie pre vlastné predstavy a riešenia, ale len o vyvolanie emócií. A emócia, ktorá najviac funguje a prináša najviac bodov, je strach. Preto už nepotrebujeme získavať dôveru ľudí, stačí, ak ľudia nebudú dôverovať nikomu a budú sa báť seba navzájom. Ja som veľmi rád, že my v Bratislave sme sa hodnot nevzdali a uchránili ich. A nie je to žiadne klišé. Hodnoty magistrátu a hodnoty nášho mesta vznikali v diskusiách s ľuďmi, ktorí tu bývajú, žijú, ale aj tí, ktorí pre mesto pracujú. Sú súčasťou našej politiky každého jedného rozhodnutia a projektu, ktorý ako mesto robíme. Je to spolupráca, solidarita, tolerancia a empatia. Snažíme sa o mesto, ktoré myslí na svojich najslabších, na deti, na seniorov, lebo vieme, že mesto dobré pre deti je v konečnom dôsledku mestom lepších pre nás všetkých. Mesto, v ktorom sa dokážeme zastať jeden druhého aj vtedy, keď nepôjde zrovna o slobodu alebo demokraciu. Mesto, ktoré pozná svoje komunity a podporuje ich bez ohľadu na politické a ideologické preferencie s vedomím, že každá z nich je nenahraditeľná pre funkčný a veľmi krehký ekosystém mesta. Pretože si veľmi dobre uvedomujeme, že predpokladom našej spokojnosti je, aby boli spokojní aj ostatní okolo nás. Ďalšie hodnoty sú bezpečnosť, rovnováha, udržateľnosť a harmónia. Rovnováhu hľadáme dokonca aj v takej téme, ako je doprava. My vieme, že medzi najlepšie miesta na život patria tie, kde sú všetky spôsoby dopravy v rovnováhe. A preto sa snažíme budovať kvalitnú infraštruktúru pre čo najviac rôznych spôsobov dopravy, do ktorých sa všetci obyvatelia efektívne rozdelia podľa svojich vlastných potrieb a preferencií. Harmónia, ďalšia dôležitá hodnota, je súlad, ktorý je veľmi dôležitý vo verejnom priestore. Je 100-krát potvrdené skúsenosťami po celom svete, že to, ako verejný priestor vyzerá, ako sa v ňom dobre cítime, ovplyvňuje to, ako sa k sebe správame. A my nechceme, aby naše mestá zostali, ak chceme, aby naše mestá zostali bezpečným a pokojným domovom, z ktorého sa neodchádza a do ktorého sa radi vraciame, je harmónia dôležitou hodnotou. A v konečnom dôsledku je to aj odvaha robiť aj nepopulárne, ale za to potrebné veci a rozhodnutia. Toto musí byť v každom našom rozhodnutí najdôležitejšie. A dôležitejšie ako akékoľvek moje politické plusy alebo mínusy. V V čase rastúcej neistoty a geopolitického napätia naprieč celým svetom už bezpečnosť nie je iba jednou z tém. Stáva sa jednou z našich najväčších priorít. Či ide o kybernetické hrozby, výpadky kritickej infraštruktúry alebo vážne ozbrojené konflikty, neistota sa čoraz viac dostáva do našich životov. Ako udržať naše mestské komunity súdržné, odolné a pokojné, keď naše obavy narastajú? Aké sú krízové scenáre miest? Ako sa máme pripraviť na nepredstaviteľné? Sú to veľmi dôležité otázky, o ktorých potrebujeme diskutovať a vymieňať si skúsenosti. Zvlášť podnetné môžu byť pre nás skúsenosti ukrajinských miest, ktoré túto situáciu zažívajú v úplne extrémnej a demaskovanej podobe. Ukazujú totiž aj zraniteľnosť našich miest. Rovnako dôležitými otázkami sú aj oslabovanie občianskych slobôd, koncentrácia moci a upevňovanie kontroly na úrovni štátov. Mestá sa stávajú štítom pri ochrane demokracie. Ako môžeme na úrovni miest lepšie odolávať autoritárskym trendom? Ako mestá dokážu spájať roztrieštenú spoločnosť a budovať dôveru, ktorá je jednou z najvzácnejších, ale zároveň aj najohrozenejších komodít? Tu sa teším na skúsenosti najmä našich amerických kolegov a priateľov, ktorých špecifická situácia pod extrémnym federálnym tlakom výrazne posilnila aj potrebu globálnej solidarity medzi demokratickými lídrami miest. Vážené dámy, vážení páni, keď som začal mierne apokalyptickým citátom z prejavu kanadského premiéra, jeho posolstvo nebolo temné, práve naopak. Povedal tiež, že vieme, že starý poriadok sa už nevráti a nemali by sme za ním smútiť. Nostalgia totiž nie je stratégia. Je ňou viera, že uprostred tohto zlomu dokážeme vybudovať niečo väčšie, lepšie, silnejšie a spravodlivejšie. Niečo, čo bude stáť na silných základoch, na hodnotách, udržateľnosti a spolupráci. A toto je aj cesta pre naše milované mestá. Cesta, ktorá je otvorená každému, kto verí samospráve, demokracii a slobode a je ochotný po nej kráčať s nami. Priatelia, teším sa na naše zaujímavé diskusie a ešte raz vám želám príjemný večer v našej spoločnosti. Ďakujem veľmi pekne.
Thank you very much, Mayor Vallo. And now let's proceed to the first discussion panel that will be focused on security. Security, which has become the main topic and a big issue in basically all cities around the world, if I may say so. So let me pass the floor to Martin Sklenar, expert in security and defense policy and former Minister of Defense, who will lead the discussion. Martin, the floor is yours.
Security, I know it's not very nice, and it might get a little gloomy as we go into the discussion. But I hope we will also provide you with some, light at the end of the tunnel in the way that we hopefully identify some works that work actually for the people and how people can actually make their decision. Let me ask my distinguished panelists to join me here on the podium here, please. We have the Mayor of Warsaw, Mr. Rafał Trzaskowski, sorry. We have, very nice to meet you. Hi. We have Ms. Lacey Beatty, Mayor of Beaverton. Welcome to the city club here. We have Ms. Mar Jimenez from Barcelona. We have Tomislav Tomašević, the Mayor of Zagreb. Tomislav, welcome to the stage. And we have Mr. Ostap Procik, the political advisor of the mayor in Lviv, Ukraine. Thank you very much for being here. Please find a seat on the panel. And we are very lucky and happy to have, before we start this discussion with this very distinguished panel here, we have the mayor of Kyiv, Mr. Vitaly Klitschko, joining us online. Vitaly, welcome to the discussion. We are very happy to have you here. There's a lot of support going to Ukraine. I hope you feel it. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to get first-hand experience with how people are coping with the change in the environment. We see aggressive Russia. I hope you can hear us, because we cannot really hear you. But I hope that the technical the techniques will work. We see, aggressive Russia. We see a different relationship with the United States than what we are used to, especially on the federal level. Let's see about the city level. We will hear that in the panel. But people are thinking increasingly about, what is the role, how they should get prepared. My simple question is, please share with us the experience. How are the expectations and the perceptions of people changing as they get in a very difficult situation? What is it that they are looking for from the city level? Please, the floor is yours. If that works, it would be great if we can hear you.
Oh, word to me?
Yes, please.
Sorry. First of all, I want to say big regards to everyone in Pakt of Free City Summit. Thank you very much for the invitation, but sorry, I can't be together with you. Want very much, but for many reasons I can't leave right now my city. But anyway, together with always with the heart with you, and I want to say first of all, one more time, 1,000 times, thank you. Thank you very much for everyone who support Kyiv, who support Ukraine, for our sister city, for our friends who give to us help in this critical period of time. Warsaw, Bratislava, Barcelona, as many other cities, our sister city give to us so much support, humanitarian help, generators, because we never expect we have so much challenges in this period of time. I'm more than sure for every one of us right now, not just in Ukraine definitely, but for everyone right now in the world, safety question number one. And the question number one, what I receive every day, when war will be stopped, and we wish to stop this senseless war. But anyway, the Russians expect just the power position, and that's why we have to be strong in front line. And I hope it's everyone understand right now we defend not just our homeland, we defend everyone in Europe, because a sick vision of Putin. He wants to rebuild Russian Empire, and please never forget, belong to Russian Empire, Baltic countries, Poland, Czechia, Slovakia, Poland, and right now we defend every one of you also, and thank you very much for support what we receive. The main question right now for our citizens, services, what people receive is the safety, and also services in this critical period of time when the Russians destroyed our critical infrastructure. Putin announced the main goal of Russian army is military base, but the question why they attack always capital of Ukraine, peaceful city, and in our hometown killed more than 300 people. 30 children. I talk just about civilians who killed with missiles attack, kamikaze drones, and the main challenge for us to survive the last winter with critical weather condition. The outside was really strong winter, cold, minus 25 degrees Celsius. And without heating was difficult to survive. We have huge deficit of electricity. One more time, thank you for everyone who support us. And right now we prepare and do everything for the next winter to be ready to give the services to everyone, to build right now double heating system, and support and defend our electricity system in Ukraine, in our hometown. And yes, of course, unity is very important to support each other, to help each other. It's not big words. Without help of our friends, we can survive in last winter. And it's not just it's a question not just capital of Ukraine. It's a question for every city in Ukraine because the main target is critical infrastructure. We actually have right now a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and ready to share our knowledge to our partners. We hope is this situation, critical situation, what we have in Ukraine never happens in Europe, but anyway, we have to be prepared for any case and know what we have to do and to help the citizens and to give to our citizens help, support, and trust. We defend, we support everyone, and we give the help to everyone in any situation what can happen. We still go through challenges what we have every day, and we hope all together we stop this senseless war. And unity inside the country and unity around Ukraine, the key for peace and freedom. One more time, thank you very much for everyone who support, and big regards to every one of you who help Ukraine to defend aggressive politics of Russians. I hope very soon the peace coming to our homeland, and we actually have to share our ideas, our vision, and post-Soviet countries as Czech Republic, as Slovakia, as Poland. It's a good example to us. They right now already part of European family. They make huge reform, they make huge progress and give great services to citizens, make a lot of good positive changes in the countries. We, be honest, we're jealous and we want to do it want to go exactly the same way and also be successful as yours. I will be very happy to give answer. Don't want to take a lot of time. Big regards to everyone from capital of Ukraine. And one more time, thank you for everything what you're doing for our home city, for our homeland.
Thank you very much, Vitaly. That was a great opening to our discussion about security and what cities should provide. And I noted down, the focus on services. I also noted the unity that you mentioned, because this is important, and the preparedness. My one question, if I may, before you have to disconnect and go to your busy schedule. Is there a way to prepare for 5 years of conflict that you have to endure every day? Because we will talk about what we can do to prepare for crisis situations, but how do you find the strength to carry on for 5 years?
The main question right now, it's a lot of questions. First of all, hospitals have to work, and that's why every hospitals have to be autonomous system regarding water, electricity, heating. Also, education process in the schools. I want to tell it's all schools and all preschools in our hometown. We have 500 schools and 500 preschools in our hometown. Everyone work, but it's very important to have shelters for the children. If they have alarm, they have to go and to a safety place. It's the main question for parents. The children have to be in safety place, and that's why we build shelters in every school. Without shelters, we can't provide and can't opening education process. It's also very important. Very important. Public transportation is also one of the very important point in unusual situation. With deficit of electricity, with deficit, with dangers, what we have also a lot of experience and also know-how. I was in Spain when was a huge blackout. just a couple of months, last October, I guess. People was really disappointed what they have to do it, and we actually prepare for traffic. We know if we have the problems with electricity, what we have to do, and we have clear roadmap in this case. And that's why it's very important to prepare for any case to city have to work. And it's very important to give the services to everyone and give exactly instruction to every citizens what they have to do it in difficult, in different case, different scenario. It's very important. One of the main point is communication. It's we receive a lot of awards, and one of the big IT exhibition in Madrid. 700 cities participate in this exhibition, and we receive a lot of awards. Our IT department work pretty well, and we have a lot of services, and also communication to every citizens in our hometown. It's very important to give the clear information to everyone and receive the feedback. We pretty well in this way, and also ready to share our experience with our partners. That's why it's bad experience. I hope it never happens, but as I told, we have to be prepared and ready to support and to help to every citizen who need help from us, because we are responsible for cities. We're responsible. We take a huge responsibility for everyone, and services one of them, one of the priority in our job. It's it's short answer for your question.
Great, thank you very much. This is very useful for our discussion that we're going to continue here in the room. Thank you for sharing with us the experience. And it is, if I certainly speak for everybody in this room, we hope for a very early resolution to the whole situation, and for better times for Kiev and for Ukraine as such. Thank you for everything that you're doing, and we understand the heroic fight that you are fighting for all of us. Thank you again. Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back to the room, and I'll start with Rafał. The first question that I have when I think about this: how are people, thinking about what's going on in the world? Right? I mean, the world has become a much worse place than we used to think it was, or maybe we just thought it was better, but it's not. So, what do you see? How are the expectations changing in Warsaw? Warsaw and Poland being, very open in the discussion with people about the nature of the threat. How do you feel that the people are reacting to this?
Dobry wieczór. Na začiatku dziękuję pięknie za pozwanie do Bratislavy mojemu przyjacielowi Matuszowi Valo. Pamiętajcie, Matusz jest najlepszy.
All right. It was a thank you for Mayor Valo, and he's the best, obviously. So.
And now responding to your question, well, we are all amazed at how the world became unpredictable. And I think that 10 years ago or 5 years ago, we wouldn't have predicted that it's going to get worse and worse when it comes to the predictability of it all. And I think that that means that people are looking for point of reference and for stability. And that's also one of the reasons that local and regional government is so relevant and closer to people's heart, and also seen as more responsible and more popular also. I mean, in all the polling done in Europe, there is a chasm between national politicians and local politicians when it comes to the question of trust. Because at the end of the day, we are focusing on resolving some of the most important problems that people have. And in the recent years, we've proven to be quite adept at resolving difficult situations. We've all said it, even today during the conference, my colleagues on the panel, that we've become experts at crisis situations. And in almost every speech that we make, we start with this. Because with COVID, I run 11 hospitals. with the migration crisis or the consequences of war, with instability when it comes to alliances, when it comes to the way in which we normally do politics. All of that puts an incredible burden on us. And of course, it is also connected with the thing that brings us together in the Pact of Free Cities, which is building resilience. Because at the end of the day, that's what people expect, and their eyes are on us because they want us to create that resilience towards the populists, towards the unpredictability of it all, towards those who attack the very cornerstones of democracy and of our values. But also in this particular day and age, and in this particular part of Europe, when it comes to the safety of our infrastructure, critical infrastructure, when it comes to preparedness for any kind of crisis, when it comes to our response to cybersecurity threats, when it comes to disinformation, when it comes to all the challenges that come from artificial intelligence and the preparedness for it, which puts on our shoulders this enormous burden of teaching our kids how to react to it. And basically I could go on and on and on, and it turns out that at the end of the day, again, I'm quoting my friends on the panel, but we say it all the time, we walk into this new reality where we are no longer as mayors responsible for water and sanitation and for roads and schools and hospitals, but we are also responsible for some of those things that normally central states or federal states are responsible for. So the expectations are huge, and the more the world becomes unpredictable, the more people turn to those who actually help them run their daily lives, which is local politicians.
Excellent. That's the challenges that everybody's facing, and thank you for putting them together so nicely. Let me go to Lacey here, and Ukraine and Oregon seem to be a little bit further apart on the globe here. Does it really change too much the geography, or do you think that the people also understand that the world has become more dangerous, less predictable, and what do they expect from the city?
I think it would often surprise people that cities have a lot more in common than they do apart, minus, I want to say that the mayors of Ukraine do have moral authority when it comes to leading during war. That's something, as America, we don't have war unfold in our borders, and we're very lucky because of that, but we do outsource a lot of that service in our community. Less than 1% of Americans have served in combat or served in the United States Army. So I think we're a lot similar. We have to worry about potholes. We have to worry about providing, municipal services. We have to worry about disinformation. But cities are the epicenter of people's lives, right? I cannot be escaped by my community. If I go for a jog, they find me. If I go to the grocery store, they find me. If I'm picking my kids up from school in sweatpants, they find me. And I always say to my community that you have to make a friend before you need a friend. And really, that's how I've why I'm sitting here today, why mayors are so important. We understand that relationships are the currency of the realm. We cannot do anything alone. Cities are not designed to be a standalone government. We're designed to work in partnership with other people. But I would say since 2020 and COVID, cities are really launched into the forefront of every crisis right now. Not too many mayors have the experience of leading with a world superpower next to them. Not too many mayors have the experience of leading in combat. But we all have the experience of having to translate trust in our community. And that's the most important thing that I think mayors are charged with right now.
So thank you. The people are looking for trust in the epicenters of their life. Certainly something that they don't get too much of in the world these days. Yes, please. Let's go to Mar. How's Barcelona positioned in this? Because you guys seem to be like a relaxed city down there at the beach. And is the life really so rosy? And sorry for like a very simplified description. That's not. I was in Barcelona very recently. Beautiful city, a lot of work. I probably have to expect that. How do you see this? Do your citizens expect, or have the expectations changed from the people who live there?
Let me start saying that the border of Barcelona. Let me start saying that the border of Barcelona starts in Ukraine. We have the sea. We are very far from Ukraine, but what happens in Ukraine, it's happening to Barcelona. So this is super important because sometimes we see Barcelona and Spain very far from this, but this is our border. So let me state this clear, because what happens to Ukraine, it's the future of Europe and democracy. And I would like to introduce two dimensions here, the external threat and the internal threat, because now we are living with these two kinds of threats in our daily life. We have this external threat, and Mayor Klitschko just explained what they are living. And we have Russia, we have the Middle East conflict, we have a lot of conflicts that are creating this sense of insecurity. And from cities like Barcelona, as I said, very far from Ukraine, what we are trying is to share this friendship and solidarity with them, sending fire trucks, sending generators, welcoming refugees. My mayor just announced that he's traveling to Ukraine at the end of the summer. So we need to be there, and we need to be ready to support them whenever it's needed. This is first thing. Also about Palestine, we called District 11. Barcelona has 10 districts. We have created a new district which is supporting all the cities of Palestine that are suffering now these attacks. So we need to be ready to express this solidarity towards all the territories that are defending the values and the human dignity that we all share. So this is the first ideas that I want to convey. But also we have an internal threat. We have said a lot of times that Europe is living an internal threat, which we call social unrest. There's a social unrest, and with the crisis in the war in Iran, this social unrest will grow. Because I just saw before coming here, New York Times, the inflation, it's skyrocketing, which will mean that the cost of life will be harder and harder and harder. And instead of benefiting the ones that we say this war is illegal, makes no sense, it will fuel the far-right movements. And here mayors are super important, cities are super important, because in cities it's where you realize if you are a winner or you are a loser. It's the first space you can see if your neighbor is very well positioned or you are not well positioned, and if this conflict appear. So mayors with their sponsors are a kind of buffer of democracy, because when we are tackling these situations, where we are trying to give responses with whatever it takes to the housing crisis, to the breaking our social contract, what we are doing at the end is defending democracy. What we are doing is defending the European project. And when we talk about security, and when I was reading at this panel, we need to understand that the way that we are unsafe now in our cities, it's when we are not able to pay the rent. If you are not able to pay the rent, what is the future that you can give to your kids or to the elderly? Mayor Ballo was talking about fear, and I was thinking about the words of a Italian writer, Antonio Scurati, that have studied a lot Mussolini and the rise of fascism. And he was saying that there are two feelings that you need to look for in a politician. One is fear, if this politician takes advantage of fear, and the other one is hope. If this politician is fueling hope. So our duty is to try to provide equality of opportunities. We try to defend and guarantee freedom. We need to provide this dignity, which is having a house. Because without being able to pay a rent, without being able to have this, it's impossible to guarantee a future for your citizens. So here, as city officials, as mayors, it's really, really important to talk about this dimension of security, which is rebuilding at some point the social contract that in a lot of neighbors in Europe, it's broken. And here we have a huge problem, and a huge threat to our democracy.
And in a way, the cities and the mayors are always closer to the, let's call it the basic needs, right, of the people, and much more closer and representable to the people as well. And these are important topics for their human, feeling and their security, so they feel stability, at least some kind of stability in their life, which is immensely important. Thank you for those comments. Before we get to Tomislav, let me also remind the audience here and also online that you have the possibility to ask questions to the panelists. If you have any specific points that you would like to get answered, please do that as soon as possible. We don't have too much time for a 5-person panel. So this is the hashtag where you can find the Slido reference here. Hashtag Free Cities. Please ask your questions, and I'll try to weave them into the discussion as we go. But first, let's go to Tomislav. How do you see that your job is changing as the mayor of Zagreb? What do the people expect, and what can you deliver to them?
Well, first of all, I would just follow up on what Mars said about the border of Ukraine being in Barcelona. Actually, I mean, we are having the war in Europe, and I had one of the most bizarre events as a mayor in 2022 after the Russian aggression to Ukraine started. Was, well, in the very early morning, firefighters called me and said, like, Mayor, we have a problem. The drone has crashed. And I was thinking, like, why are you calling me in 5 o'clock in the morning for a crash of, I thought, a drone like this big, a drone. No, you don't understand. The plane has crashed. A Soviet-type plane has crashed in the middle of Zagreb, in the middle of the city, and it came from the war, in Ukraine. And Croatia is not a neighboring country to Ukraine. And what were the chances from all the empty land in Europe that the drone crashes in the middle of the city, and by luck nobody died? I mean, it crashed next to the huge student housing. I mean, that we had really in a kind of almost a center of Zagreb.
Did it help to raise the awareness of people?
Of course. I mean, then people were like, okay, this war is not so far. I mean, and of course, I think Zagreb people were very much welcoming to the refugees from Ukraine. So this was not needed to increase the sensitivity, but this increased this uncertainty and lack of security among people that this can happen. I mean, so basically this drone has passed. I mean, I also have to say this. I mean, this drone has passed several member countries of NATO before being crashed in the middle of a city of a member state of NATO. So, if that can happen, anything can happen. And I'll go back to the role of the mayors changing. I mean, so basically, it was mentioned several times in the panel. I think also Lacey mentioned it before, and Rafa mentioned it before. We are really becoming, as mayors, crisis managers. I mean, that's basically, becoming more and more of our jobs. The number of crises, I cannot even, name them in the last 5 years, and there's no point of doing that. But really, the tools of the city government are very different. I don't know, Martin, if you agree with me from your background. They're very different from the national government tools. Yes. The national government, when we talk about security, and I think security is not an issue that should be left to far-right populists, which some politicians were doing for a long time. I think security is a very, very crucial issue for everybody. And we have to look at it from a broader sense of the word security, not nationals only security, protecting borders of a country, but a human security. Security of every single individual in our cities, in our countries. And this is really, changing in terms of the expectations that citizens have. And really, cities do have the tools, because the national government, when it comes to security, has either a policy that's a long-term, systematic, and maybe the results will come in 5 years in defense, etc., or it has, situations to react like an X, like an X being a medical instrument. For example, deploying an army to deal with consequences in the city. I mean, the army is not, equipped to deal with many of the problems from natural disasters to, different, security, let's call it security issues. And cities do have the tools. Mm-hmm. We are used to run our cities on everyday basis. We have, city companies, that do road maintenance, that do green areas maintenance. We have the construction equipment, the workers. So it's our job. We have the tools to react on many of these kind of security threats. And I think, but the problem is that there are so many of them, and the resources being put to cities to deal with that, there's a bigger and bigger lack.
Okay.
So I think we can do this job really good, but the number of crises and the severity of this crisis which is happening and being put on the shoulders of cities, there's a bigger and bigger gap between the expectations and the capacity to do so. And the national government always, it's the easiest thing to do is to delegate a problem to the city. I mean, you deal with the COVID crisis. I don't know how you will organize the vaccination, but, it's your job. I don't know how you will deal with tens of thousands of refugees, but, find a way, I mean. So, because, how will national government actually find a way? Because they don't have these tools, the institutions, the kindergartens, the schools, the firefighters, the construction companies, the road maintenance and all these things. So I think in that way, cities' role in security is now more crucial than ever, but we are lacking resources.
Because also security means a lot more things than it used to mean, right? I mean, now it's resilience, now it's exactly education, critical thinking, making sure that people understand what is, a credible source of information, what is not. And the closer you want to get to the people, I agree, the national government is not always suited best to make sure that is the case. Let's bookend this first round of intervention with another Ukrainian experience. And if you can share with us, Ostap, your experience from Lviv, and maybe also talk a little bit about the urgency, because that's also something that we need to take into account here, right? I mean, we understand there's a lot of suffering and a lot of unexpected situations going on, but in order to deal with them, there's a lot of time pressure and urgency. What is your experience? How do you get through this, and what did you find most useful?
Yeah, thank you very much. First, I want to continue what Mr. Klitschko said to the audience, and I didn't prepare the whole phrase like Mr. Trzaskowski in Slovak, but there is one word which I think is quite similar in Ukrainian and in Slovak. It's ďakujú. So ďakujú. Again. We have a lot of requests and the questions like how can we prepare? We have almost every week we have delegations from international partners who are learning our experience in how to protect the critical infrastructure, how to deal with education, healthcare system in general, the city management, emergency services, all the areas. And I am hearing always this one similar question from all our partners. Imagine, it's just the question to us, imagine you have 1 year before the invasion. What would you do better? How would you prepare? And, it's always difficult, because it's difficult to imagine alternative reality. But there is this famous saying that generals are always preparing for the last wars, the previous wars. And it's a tricky question, because everything what happened to us can be outdated in few months, and all the threats which I hope will never happen to all of your cities, but they could be completely different, especially with all those technological advances which we are witnessing now at the front line, but they will be transmitted all over the world. But one thing which is important, there is this approach to the governance which is about awareness and readiness, and this is something which is really important, because if we know the facts, it doesn't mean sometimes that we are aware of what they mean. Just look at the example of Ukraine in 2022. Basically, we knew all the facts. We knew that Russia is an aggressive country. We knew that almost 200,000 soldiers were already at the border. We knew that they are threatening us with all their aggressive rhetorics. But were we aware of what will happen and were we ready? I think we were doing a lot of things, and it helped. Yes, if you are thinking about it, if you're aware of what can potentially happen and you are doing something, that can just help at this first shock, at the first stress. But then this very, very delicate and, I would say, thing is important is the human behavior. Because, of course, protocols matters. Of course, all the emergency and security measures matters. But at the end of the day, you have the human who have to make decisions, who have to manage all the processes and to deal with the incredibly stressful situation. And we always heard this phrase about the social cohesion, and sometimes people think this is just like soft topic. It should be mentioned because there are some requirements from Brussels and European Union. You have to put always those social cohesion in all your projects. But I think this is really the question of the national and urban security, because how people will behave, will they panic or will they self-organize? Will they help each other or will they make some destructive things, which can happen in the circumstances of if everything is falling apart. So many things can happen. And in this time, it's very important what people see in the first hours, how the authorities behave, how the local authorities behave. But, we have a lot to do as Ukraine. We have a lot to do in our way to European Union. But one important reform which we did, and in my opinion, this is one of the most successful reforms in Ukraine, is the decentralization, which happened in 2015, and then it was the process. And it gave the local authorities a lot of power, additional power, and a lot of trust. And there are.
Let me ask you: was security one of the motivations to do decentralization?
No. Security is not. But if this happens, you don't ask yourself, "Are you responsible of something?" You just do what you. Okay. There are a lot of stories, especially of small municipalities, communities at the front line, which started to organize the self-defense, even first clashes with the Russian soldiers before the military arrived. Okay. There is this very famous story, for example, of the city of Voznesensk, who just stopped the Russian before they were ready to capture the Pivdenno-Ukrainska nuclear plant. So because it should be one additional nuclear plant which could be captured by Russia, and only thanks to the first response of the local authorities of this very small town. It didn't happen, yes, then military arrived and helped and decided. But yes, so many things which are not described in all the documents as something you are responsible for. In times of crisis, you just do that, and you don't ask anybody if that's your job to do.
That seems to be the story of whether you're prepared, because as you say, you usually prepare based on the experience that you have from previous situations, right? But then you need the resolve of the people on the ground just to do stuff to protect their families, their lives, their property. Let me give you an opportunity to say one thing that you would need to make your to make cities better prepared for dealing with the uncertainties and with the situation, how to deliver better services, better care for the citizens, and just in the meantime, as you think about that, we're getting questions, and I'm surprised. One of the most asked questions is about technology and AI, and whether it helps you I would add whether it also, is part of the problem and whether it adds to the, confusion and less preparedness of the people then. But if you had the chance, would you have what would it be that you would ask for? Like, this is what we need to make the city better prepared. Whoever already knows. Mar, you seem like you already know what you really want.
I just wanted to say something that I think that we will share. It's to be treated like active solvers, and we were discussing previously, and this is about Europe, when it's about funds, about regulations and so on, we are just passive actors.
Okay.
So we know what to do. We are doing without, perhaps we don't have competences, but we know what to do, and we are doing despite not having sometimes the legal framework or the competences or the funds.
Excellent.
So I would say that when we are dealing with these huge challenges, what needs to be recognized as active problem solvers, that the ones that know better what's happening and to be taken into account when we talk about multi-level governance, this is fake. Because we always talk about multi-level governance, but then we're just there receiving the funds, but not taking part in the conversation at the very beginning. So I would say that being considered key players in Europe as part of the solution and part of the ones that can preserve democracy and the European project.
Excellent. Anybody want to ask for anything from the federal government, state government? Lacey? Yeah.
When I was a young Army soldier, we had this saying that plans only survive first contact.
Okay.
And so you could plan all you want, but the first time that round comes over the wire, all hell breaks loose. So I am a fan of preparedness. I'm a fan of plans, but I would like to propose that relationships are preparedness, right? In a different way. So I represent one of the most diverse cities in the Pacific Northwest. 1 in 5 were born outside of the United States. 1 in 3 identify as a person of color. And in our school system, 110 languages are spoken in the homes of Beavertonians. And so when I'm preparing for things, I'm often thinking about who gets the message, in what language, will we build trust? If we show up with our police officers in a Somali refugee community, they're not going to be received the same way as perhaps Ukrainian refugees that see military and police as allies. And so we're constantly trying to think and reframe how we deliver messaging. And I'll launch off a little bit with the AI question, because in my first answer, I was going to say, AI was supposed to make our lives easier.
Yeah.
And it does help write notes, which is really good. It helps manage my schedule, but it also creates tons of disinformation. And you don't even trust what you see with your own eyes right now. And we live in a country where the president is saying the media is fake, don't look over here and see what you believe. I will say in some areas of local government, it's made it easier. I'll give you one example. When I was a baby city councilor, we approved body-worn cameras for our police officer. Every police officer in our department must turn on when you start engaging with the public. What we saw in our court system is we have virtually no trials by jury anymore. And so, because there's video, you did it or you didn't do it. And if you're a criminal that did something bad, you most certainly don't want your parents and everyone else seeing you act a fool on this cop's body-worn camera. So now our courts are dealing with different issues around homelessness and mental health, but we haven't seated a jury in 2 years. And so some areas of technology make our life easier, some make it really harder. And I think really the ethical use of it is the vernacular that we're using a lot in government. Like, when do you use AI? When do young kids use AI? Because it's also becoming a great separator of class. If you come from a white-collar family that uses AI, you're more inclined to use it. If you come from a blue-collar family that doesn't, you're behind your peer groups. And so how do we now look at AI as those that have and those don't have? And we have a lot of that responsibility as the mayor to help our community understand those things.
Great, excellent. And there's also, a case to be made that it adds to the complexity of the war. I mean, as we see, right, the technology is part of the war. Rafa, please.
I think that in a certain sense, we can answer the question about what we need and the question about artificial intelligence with the same answer. Because every conflict today starts with disinformation. And basically, I mean, we are all at war right now because the powers to be, Russia, but not only Russia, are trying to sow mischief, to put it very mildly, to undermine our democracy, undermine trust. So what we need really is trust-building measures, because at the end of the day, I mean, if we are to be strong and resilient and also send the signal to our foes and enemies that we are ready so that they will never even think about starting a conflict, we need to show that we trust each other. And this is about the relations between the federal or the central government and the local government, so that there is no disinformation and name-calling and blaming in between the people who are responsible for stability, providing stability in times of conflict. But also it is about building trust among the citizens so that they know what to do. And in a sense, this is connected to artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence, you know, if we treat it as an instrument, and we should, I mean, it can be a force for good and it can be a force for evil. So when it comes to information, artificial intelligence, if used wisely and if used responsibly, can help us actually fight with disinformation. And if we are prepared well to use this tool, for example, like in the City Hall in Warsaw, we had those trainings about how do we inform the public. Because everything has changed because of artificial intelligence. So today, it doesn't matter, you know, how your beautiful webpage of the city looks like, because no one is ever going to see it, because more and more people are just simply asking the chat box. So now the question is, what kind of information do you feed the chat box? So that you are responsible and you have to teach the people who work with you for providing the right information, that there are no different information from different departments of the city, that you frame it in a way which builds trust, that you frame it in a way which is transparent, that you frame it in a way that you want people to see it and believe in what you're doing and strengthen trust and responsibility. So, and then if you use this in a way which I've just described, we can use artificial intelligence as an instrument to help you communicate effectively, to build trust, to fight disinformation, and so on and so forth. If you teach your kids something that most of us know, that the way in which you frame your question to artificial intelligence can influence the response that you're going to get. This is not absolutely clear to our kids. I tested it with my kids. I tested it with my students, that, you know, the way you ask a question may influence the response, that artificial intelligence hallucinates, especially if you ask questions in Polish, because it's trained in different languages and so on and so forth. So this is absolutely fundamental for fighting disinformation, for building trust, but also for having a chance to use artificial intelligence as an instrument for good, rather than artificial intelligence exacerbating all of those problems that I've just mentioned.
Thank you very much. That's a very good point. You have to make sure that the people, but the people trust the channel, right? They trust the artificial intelligence chatbots, so you have to make sure that it provides up-to-date information that makes sense. Tomislav.
Well, I would agree on what was said before. If you ask me what is needed for security in our cities, I would agree that, you know, cities are taken as partners to federal government, to EU institutions, international organizations. I would agree with the ethical use of AI. Of course, we need the resources. We always, you know, we have. I don't know if people know this, but there's a consensus among all the 27 EU capitals, and much broader than that, about the direct access to EU funding. No matter on the political party, no matter on, you know, geography, we all have a consensus, you know. So, but what I wanted to say beyond this, I would say, usual kind of answers, I think the most important is the trust. Trust within our cities. Trust between the citizens and institutions. Trust among the citizens, between the, you know, the neighbors. Because without this, you don't have, you know, if we talk about security from the perspective of crime, from perspective of response to natural disasters, you know, readiness to volunteer in the civic service, readiness to be in solidarity with the others, you know, readiness to follow the institutions look at the COVID, for example, to follow the rules of the institutions. There's no security without trust. And that is something which is really eroding in our societies. The social capital, the trust, because of inequality, because of disinformation, because of the, the problems we are facing geopolitically, etc., etc. And that's, I think, the most important resource for security.
Excellent. Sorry. What would you need, Ostap, if you had a chance to ask for something? And I know there's a lot that you need currently, but what would it be for the city to make make it possible to deliver a better service to the people?
Yeah, of course, from our perspective, which is specific war perspective, of course, we are thinking after this winter. In 2022, when Russian for the first time hit the critical infrastructure in Lviv, and it was a small electrical substation. It caused the total blackout in the city for 5 days. Just one substation. After this winter, when Russians were targeting with everything they had, everything they can map in their military targets, we've changed a lot. Yes, so we really made a lot. But still we are preparing for the next winter. And we are also always asking our military colleagues, like giving them questions, like imagine you are the enemy and you have the city like Lviv. What would you do to destroy the critical infrastructure? So, and from such responses, we are planning our activities. And one of the things which is discussed among military, but also if you're going to any cafe in Lviv, everybody is talking about startups in military tech, about AI, about drones, so it's like, hot topic in Lviv. And the hot topic is the AI and weapon, because we are not talking only about chatbots, but the use of AI in weapon. And the message is very simple, that basically the potential in Ukrainian army, but don't forget that Russians too, they are learning too. And sometimes we are faster, sometimes they are faster. It's not like one-way development. And the question is that the use of artificial intelligence and weapon on both sides, it's already the potential to do everything with that. And the discussion is that the only potential line which will prevent the total use of AI, like giving him just the command, go there and kill everybody. Yeah? And the only line between that are the discussions about potential international conventions that will prevent it. And I just imagine such an authoritarian dictator who has this opportunity, and even not the convention, but even discussion about the convention, what he will choose. I have no answer on this. So this is just the question we have to think about in the nearest future.
Well, history doesn't give us good examples here, right? I mean, we have conventions on nuclear weapons and everything, and people are breaking it and trying to get, weapons that they shouldn't be trying to get. We have a couple of minutes left, and let me ask you this, because I mean, if you have brief interventions, that's perfectly fine. We'll fit that into the 5 minutes. People expect from cities a lot. They have more credibility. They can build better trust. This is what we discussed in the panel here. I'm glad that somebody mentioned money. That there's need for more money, because it seemed like cities don't need money. So that would be a good message to send. But what is it that the cities cannot provide to the people, where they have to think for themselves? Like, what do I do in the first 72 hours, basically, right? Before I'm able to get help from somebody. Is it something that you discuss with your populations, or on the other side, this is what you need to get from the state level. This is what you need from the federal government. What are the limits of the cities? Whatever you feel. Ostap, do you have a thing that you are not able to deliver to the people, and saying people are asking for something, and you say, you go ahead and ask in Kyiv?
yeah, people will not accept it, of course. So that's the main question. You are responsible for everything. But may I have this
sure,
last message?
And if it's not a good question, then just tell me like that's not how it works, Martin, and we have to deliver whatever.
One message, because I recall on one conversation, as I mentioned, many delegations are coming to learn the experience, and of course, first who are coming, these are people responsible for crisis prevention, rescue services, emergency services, firefighters. And we had one discussion between Ukrainian firefighters, not from Lviv, but from one of the frontline cities. And they were asked the same questions from their colleagues. What was the biggest problem in the first days and even the first hours? What would you need? Yeah? What would you prepare if you could do it? And everybody expected the answer will be about some equipment, some protection, maybe some logistical issues. But unexpectedly, the answer from all of the firefighters from this frontline Ukrainian city was that the biggest problem, the biggest concern was that you are ordered to go to the fire to fight it. At the same time, you are thinking that your family is now in the small village or town, and the Russian advancing so fast that probably you have just hours to evacuate them. And you have this terrible dilemma. Are you going to do your duty and to save some people? Or do you have to deal with your family and save your family? And this is the soft issue, that you have and this human aspect of the crisis management, which is really very,
That is
very
exactly the kind of situations that you have to think before it happens, right? Because in the crisis situations, it should be very... Yes, please, Rafa.
First, a bit of family history. Because we live in this part of Europe that, those histories were passed on by generation, from a generation to a generation. And I remember that my mother and her two sisters, because their brother was killed during the Warsaw Uprising, so only 3 sisters were left. And I was asking them how it was at the beginning of the war. And the oldest sister told me it was an incredible thing because I got to know my mother. Because my grandmother, throughout the war, they were pretty well-off people, so they were partying, doing business, and so on, and the nannies were taking care of the children. And suddenly the war broke out, and immediately they had to take care of the children. And for the first time, the daughters really got to know their mother because she was taking care of them every other day. And then another one was when the Warsaw Uprising started, when they were telling me that they had to grow up in an hour. So, I mean, you can never know, how prepared you are going to be. But I think that it is the question of preparedness. So I think that what happened in Ukraine, of course, attests, and that the war rages on for 4 years, almost more than 4 years, and that Putin was so surprised, of course, is a testament to the Ukrainian people and their resilience and their strength and so on and so forth. But in a certain sense, it is also a test to us all. Because for the first time, we were, as much as we could, prepared as a Western transatlantic community. Because we knew, for the first time, we knew that it might happen. So we started preparing, and our response was, as for the European Union, as for the transatlantic alliance, quite swift and quite tough and quite decisive. Yeah. And we started helping. Unfortunately, again, we were dragging our feet when it came to what kind of assistance we were giving to Ukraine and so on and so forth, because we could have done it even quicker and, lethal force and so on and so forth. But I mean, that's the thing, that we need to be prepared. So, I mean, we cannot be just, feeling ourselves well and that it's never going to happen to us and so on. We need to know that it might happen to us. And we have to have all the procedures in place. We have to have the solidarity in place. We have to know that if the world is becoming unpredictable, we have to have different scenarios prepared. What if one ally doesn't want to help us? And again, I'm going to come back to the Polish history. Yep. We were the most traumatized in '39 because people were absolutely convinced that the Brits and the French are going to help us and that they're going to start the war. And on the 3rd of September, there were people happy in front of the French and the British embassy saying, thank you for starting the war. But nothing happened later on. So those are the history lessons, the traumatism, either from the family or from the national history that we have to take into account. And if we are going to be absolutely certain that we have all the contingency planning prepared, that we know what's going to happen hour 1, hour 2, first day, second day, third day, then I think that this is the best kind of prevention, because then Putin will know, and all the other crazy guys who bode ill for us.
The important thing is that this is now the time to think about stuff like that, right? Even though we live in peace, not all of us, but we live in peace here on the European side of the Ukrainian, Slovak or Polish border, and this is the difficult thinking that you have to do. But please, I want to make sure that in the few minutes that we have left, Tomislav, Mar, and everybody gets to speak.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, cities don't have military. So anything related to the defense on that kind of level, cities cannot provide. We can do shelters, we can do civic service protection, etc., but we cannot do military defense.
All right.
But there's another aspect of security. That's the extreme situation. But unfortunately, it's happening in Europe. It's happening. Croatia, before Ukraine, Croatia had a war. That was the first war after the Second World War in Europe. Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, etc. So it does happen. We have this situation. My father was in the war. I remember as a kid going to shelters. From the bombing of the city, etc. So it is sometimes happening. But the second thing, what I want to say is, from the security point of view, what is the daily security, and that is the police. American cities usually do run police. Some European cities do have their own police. Many European cities do not have a police jurisdiction, and I think this should change.
Okay.
Because I think we run firefighters, we run the ambulance, the hospitals, and all the tools except the police.
Excellent. Thank you. Mark, can you deliver everything?
We have police. And let me go to something that you said, that not to leave security to the right, because it's one of the pillars of the consensus in our societies. It's security. Even if you live in a less wealthy neighborhood, you deserve the same feeling of security than a wealthy neighborhood. I live in a poor neighborhood in Barcelona, and I have the same right to feel safe as a woman, because you know that women, we feel different. The situation is pretty different from men when I go home as in a wealthy neighborhood. So for me, this is super important. And about the question that if you don't have the tools, mayors have so much creativity that I've seen mayors that, despite not having the competences, to imagining ways to deliver, or at least to fight whatever it takes to deliver. So I would say that despite not having the competences, mayors go far beyond of the capabilities to give responses to their citizens.
People will appreciate it, I'm sure. Lacey, last words to you on the panel, please.
Yeah, I think a lot about what you talked about having many days of supplies. And my husband is a full-time National Guard officer, so we have these family conversations of, if you get called to duty, who gets our kit? We have, on the west coast of the United States, we are preparing for a massive earthquake in the Cascadia subduction zone. So we're training our community members to have 6 or 7 days worth of supplies in their home to wait for the military or whoever to come in and help them. The reality is it's probably like 3 weeks. And so we're trying to get people to stockpile. But what we're experiencing now is a little bit different. Like, if you put AI in the mix, what we're talking about is an actual war, an invasion into your community and doing it. What happens when they attack the infrastructure? You don't actually see the enemy, but the entire power grid goes down. Many of you have young people, children at home. Do they know? They probably don't even know their own phone number. How would they get home without Apple Maps? Who's going to pick your kids up from school? And young people outsource so many things that their neighbors used to do. If you were sick, your neighbor would bring you food. Now we have Uber Eats. If you had to go to the airport, crazy Uncle Timmy would take you to the airport. Now that doesn't exist. You have Uber. So we're starting something in our community that just says, know your neighbor. because so many people don't even know people in their own community. And when something terrible happens, that's your emergency contact circle. And you might not even have met your neighbor 2 doors down because you're busy using technology to outsource every other responsibility. And so we think a lot about that, starting and ending with community, making sure that they own the preparedness plan themselves because government cannot save you, and then making sure you know your neighbors. And so we're doing that through neighborhood 5Ks, making sure they know who in your neighborhood is elderly that can't get support if they need it. So let's start and end with community. And I think you heard that through all of us today, the importance of trust, the importance of resilience, and the importance to own as the mayor, to own the community vibe, and that has to be relationship-centered.
And that's how the Pact of the Free Cities started. Know your neighbor.
Know your neighbor.
See, I just set him up for that, yeah.
Thank you very much. And please continue in thanking the panelists for their wonderful discussion. Thank you very much. This was a pleasure to have you. And I'll give the floor back to Eva.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your really interesting and fruitful discussion. And now we will continue straight on with a small fitting of the stage. We will continue with our next panel discussion that will deal with subject that will be a little bit different, but I'm sure that will be a lot of overlapping. We will discuss how cities push back against authoritarian practices coming from the national level, how they can resist, and also how they tackle social issues, which is part of democratic resilience. I would be happy if you would be not leaving, because this is not a break. I know that you might need it, but we really would like to continue with our second panel discussion. If the stage is ready, which I believe is, then I would like to ask the Mayor of Budapest, Mr. Gergely Karácsony, for his opening speech that will kick off this second panel discussion. So, Mayor Karácsony, please join me on the stage. Here you are. Please, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear friends, historical changes are taking place in my country these days. Orbán Viktor has lost power after 16 terms in office. Hungary is no longer a symbol of illiberalism, but the collapse of illiberalism. How did all this happen? Of course, the reasons are many. I would like to talk about one of them, which serves as a lesson for all Democrats. The point, what I am saying, is that cities can indeed be bastions of democracy, and they have much more if they remain the bastions and do not turn into islands. My thoughts were also published in the Euroactiv magazine last week. Hungary has entered a new chapter. The elections of the 12th of April swept away an authoritarian system and made clear that Hungarian society wants to return to the European values and to a European way of life. This democratic turn did not come suddenly. It was built over the years by citizens and communities who refused to give up on freedom, even under increasing pressure. In this process, cities, and above all Budapest, played a decisive role. While national institutions were being weakened, cities preserved something essential: everyday practice of freedom. They kept alive what might be called the flame of liberty. And it was from these urban communities that a broader democratic renewal could take shape. Hungary's recent experience shows that even democratic norms are eroded. They can survive in local communities, and therefore they can be rebuilt. Budapest offered such a space. It was a place where participation, solidarity, and openness were not abstract values, but lived realities. The citizens could still experience what it means to have a voice, and where local governance sought to remain closer to people, even when the broader political environment moved in an opposite direction. The Budapest Pride of last year became a powerful symbol of this. What was meant to be restricted instead turned into a demonstration of the civic confidence. People did not withdraw. They showed up peacefully, openly, and with the shared purpose. There was even a sense of a quiet defiance in the air. Europe, a community built on the civic freedoms and right. Those who choose freedom choose companions, as spoken by one of the most important Hungarian political thinkers, András Lányi. On that day, Budapest experienced that freedom has a community. It has strength, and it has a European language, solidarity. Moments like this matter, restore confidence, and remind people that they are not alone, and they contribute, often in ways that are only visible later, to a broader political change. Many prefer to reduce such development to a cultural conflict. I think this is a mistake. The right of assembly is not an ideological privilege. It is a democratic minimum. It does not depend on who thinks what about the world. It depends on whether citizens can peacefully say, we are here, we matter, and we are not afraid. If in a member state of the European Union, this right is constrained through administrative measures or political pressure, it is not only a domestic issue. It is a test of European democracy itself. It raises a fundamental question: do our shared political European principles live in the everyday reality of citizens, or have they become holy phrases? The broader lesson, however, lies with cities. The logic of power concentration, always the same. The narrow space, centralized decisions, and distance governance from citizens. Cities offer a different logic. They bring decision-making closer to the people. They create opportunities for participation, and they can remain trust, even the national politics become polarized. This is why I am uneasy when cities are described as islands of democracy. The metaphor suggests separation. It recalls a time when cities built walls to protect themselves. Today, as Pope Francis said in Budapest, we need bridges, not walls. Cities should have preserved democratic values only in themselves. Their responsibility is to demonstrate that democracy can work better in a more human, inclusive, and tangible way. I call this politics of home. Home doesn't mean perfection. It means security, predictability, decency, and participation. It means that citizens is not a subject, but an active participant. In the practical terms, this means affordable housing, livable public spaces, cleaner air, reliable services, and real opportunities for civic engagement. It also means that people can live without intimidation and with dignity. European democracy will not defend only in Brussels. It's defend in cities and towns, in everyday experiences of citizens. The European Union is not only a union of governments, it's a community of people, and trust is built where people live. Hungary's democratic renewal show that freedom can be preserved even in difficult times if there are communities willing to protect it. Budapest and other cities helped keep the possibility alive. And when the moment came, society was ready to act. Europe, too, should draw lessons from this experience. In recent years, there has many more recognition of the role of cities in sustaining democracy. But this recognition is not yet matched by sufficient attention or support. In current discussion on the next EU budget, the instruments and dedicated resources for cities are not yet visible in a way that reflect their real importance. If the European Union is serious about defending its values, it must pay closer attention to those communities that keep it alive in practice. Cities are often a democratic resilience is maintained when national systems come under strain. Supporting them more directly is not only a matter of urban policy. It is a matter of safeguarding European democracy itself. And we see images of Budapest in the global media, citizens gardening in the streets, celebrating freedom and Europe's return. We should remember what made that moment possible. That rebuilding of democracy is not begin in institution alone. It began in the cities, in communities that keep the candle of freedom alight. Thank you for your.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have to say that I'm personally moved by the latest developments in Hungary, and I believe that it's a perfect kickoff for our discussion in this second panel, where we will discuss democratic resilience of cities and the fight and resistance against authoritarian measures and policies being imposed from the national level on the cities. So let me welcome our distinguished panelists today that are here with us in person. Femke Halsema, Mayor of Amsterdam, please join me on the stage. Hello. We have Debbie Weeks-Bernard, Deputy Mayor of London, with us. And we also have Audrey Pulvar, Deputy Mayor of Paris, with us. And then I'm really happy that we also have our distinguished online speakers that we will get in touch soon. We should already be connected with Jacob Frey, Mayor of Minneapolis. So ladies, if you don't mind, I would start with the gentleman that is online with us. Jacob, thank you very much, first of all, for being with us. Minneapolis is a city that has been at the forefront of resistance to Trump administration's deportation of efforts and ICE operations. And I have heard you saying and warning your fellow mayors that they should speak up, unite, get together, and resist what Trump administration is doing and ICE agents is doing, unless they will be next in line and they will be also targeted by ICE. So my question for you is, do you believe that if cities unite, if they get together, they really can resist authoritarian policies being imposed from the state level on them?
Thank you so much for having me. It is such a great honor to be here with people that support humanitarianism and the kind of international peace that we all need to be fighting for and fostering. This Pact of Free Cities is of very special importance because even when you have the head of state that is pushing for war, even when you have two national countries that are colliding, you can still have peace within a city. And whether that is San Antonio or Amsterdam or London or Paris or Bratislava or Budapest or Prague, we can have this common decency between people, understanding that we are not just individuals that are from another country, but we're members of an international community. And what we saw in Minneapolis, and we have a long history of it, is people standing up for one another. We don't look at our immigrant community even as immigrants first. We look at them first as neighbors. They're our banker, they're our insurance agent, they're the babysitter for my kids, they're the person that serves us coffee, they're our doctors. They're part of our collective family, and we see them that way. And what is especially important right now is that when this authoritarianism conduct comes for one of us, we recognize that they come for all of us. It's important right now that we don't bow our heads in despair, but we rather speak up. We speak out, and we have the courage of our convictions. And there is no doubt in my mind that if cities of common purpose and common decency unite, then we can push for the kind of peace at an international level that we all value deeply. And so I'm confident that this kind of pact of free cities is an important step along the way, and we need to double down even further.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit more about the situation in the city right now? Because we can feel your courage, we can hear your words of resistance, but what are the results? What is the situation right now in Minneapolis?
The results in Minneapolis was that a political narrative nationally was exposed that was so damaging and detrimental to our federal administration that they have largely left. There were between 3,000 and 4,000 ICE agents and Border Patrol at the peak, compared with around 600 police officers in total that we have in our entire city. Now we have about 300 to 400. So between 3,000 and 4,000 ICE agents then, between 300 and 400 ICE agents and Border Patrol now. This is somewhat comparable to the number of ICE agents that we had long before Operation Metro Surge. Obviously, people are tired. Obviously, there is a great deal of trauma that has been suffered, but because of the tens of thousands of people that stood up and peacefully protested, because of the people that dropped groceries off for those that were terrified to go outside, and for those that were standing watch over a daycare to make sure that our neighbors don't get taken away, they created a national political narrative that was quite simply the truth. And the truth, I believe, is going to win.
Last year, you pledged that Minneapolis will be a safe haven for migrants. I wonder, how do you manage to deliver on that pledge?
Yes. We have in our city what is called a separation ordinance. And what that means is that our police, our public officials, will not coordinate or cooperate with any federal agency on immigration enforcement work. We do work together on safety. We do work together to stop crime. However, if you're trying to catch a criminal, a murderer, a rapist, the first question that you ask is not, where are you from? The first and most important question is, are they a murderer or a rapist? And so we need to be, again, we work together when it comes to safety. We do not work together when it comes to tearing our neighborhoods apart. And so in our city, we've created networks where we can have communication that goes out and is disseminated, and also helping us to get important intelligence. We helped people through their most difficult of times with food, and we try to help them with shelter. But no, we will not cooperate with a federal government that is operating in a way that is both authoritarian and is against the very Constitution that we hold dear.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Frey. Thank you very much for being with us, and I really do appreciate your contribution.
Thank you.
I think that we all need these words of hope and courage, Maybe not in all cities around Europe, maybe not all of them, all of us are facing the same problems with authoritarian interventions, but still many problems we still share together. I would like to start with you, Mayor Halsema, Mayor of Amsterdam. You are tackling issues ranging from curbing mass tourism to addressing the city's severe housing shortage. And this is a problem that has been present in many cities around Europe. What approach to housing shortage has proven effective in Amsterdam?
Oh, I'm sorry, this is such a shift from the beautiful speech of the mayor. Can I just
Of course you can comment, sure.
First say that it is really moving that he is prepared to lend his time and to be here with us just for a short time. And can I say something about the problem he is addressing? Because although the housing problem is so pressing, it's not really on the core of what's keeping me up at the moment. And I know the position of my city is still very privileged if you compare it to Budapest in the last years or Minneapolis, but still we also see the dangers. And for instance, we had an extreme right government for the last 2 years. And this government wanted to get rid of protest in the Netherlands, and especially pro-Palestinian protest of Extinction Rebellion, and all kinds of left-wing protests. They're trying to narrow down the freedom of protest was very politically motivated. And then it really comes down to the jurisdiction you have in a city, which is something that was really a problem with ICE operating in the streets. And I just wanted to give a small example. As my colleague from Zagreb said, there are so many cities where the mayor or the local government has no jurisdiction over the police. In Amsterdam, I do have jurisdiction over the police. And we are a city of protest. We have always been. Last year, there were 3,000 protests in our city, and our national government wants to get rid of it. In our city, we have local police that is called the Peace Unit. And what really makes them is when there are protests in the street, the peace units of our police are not facing towards the protesters. In most cities, or in many places, police is facing towards the protesters to control the protesters and to look if they do not misbehave. Well, in Amsterdam, we have a long tradition of the police standing with their backs to the protesters and looking at the general audience and making sure that the protesters are safe. And I think this is really essential. And this is also, I think, something that a city can do to protect their democratic base against repressive national states.
Thank you very much. Well, ladies, it's also up to you if you want to relate to what is going on in Minneapolis, then go on. The mic is over there.
So can I do just want to thank the mayor for spending the time with us. We know that he is experiencing a challenge of immense proportions, and one thing that I will say to him is that we know that you have a particular president who is creating just a climate of fear and devastation and chaos within your own country, which makes what you have been doing in response to ICE so inspirational to us all as leaders of cities in other parts of the world. The one thing I will say, though, is whenever your president casts his eye even remotely close to London, he has to comment on my boss. And so whether he's on Air Force One, whether he's wandering down the street. So my boss is apparently the worst mayor that has ever existed in the world. So, so actually you may be okay when it comes to comparatively being the best or the worst mayor, because according to your president, it's Sadiq Khan, sorry, is apparently the worst. But I think that the situation that you are faced with is not something that compares to what we face in London. But we do have a particular situation with regards to being an incredibly diverse city. We talk about our diversity constantly because we think it's important to send that message of reassurance and unity to all of our communities. But that has made us a target. So obviously I've mentioned the president, but also we are a target for far-right actors wherever they are, not just in the UK, but in the world. And that requires a level of cognizance on our part. It means that what we have to do is to ensure that we are continuously trying to counter what we see in terms of continuous onslaught of disinformation. Whilst also at the same time trying to ensure that we are reassuring our citizens as much as possible. And it's a difficult balance to maintain. It's a difficult tightrope to walk. But it's something that we are resolute in doing because we know that there are so many cities who are facing a similar pressure with regards to anti-democratic rhetoric, anti-democratic narrative, divisive populism, and so therefore we are. I mean, it's a real pleasure to make sure that we are here with all of you as city leaders who are determined to ensure that we are part of a progressive united front. Almost, it sounds like a boy band, who have come together and stand together consistently to make sure that those who would seek to exploit difference and to weaponize it know that these are cities who will not allow that to happen. So thank you for being here. And I do have a variety of things that I wanted to say, but I'm really delighted that we've had the opportunity to meet with you, Mayor Frey.
Yeah. Audrey.
Yes, Mayor of Minneapolis. I'm Deputy Mayor of Paris. I'd like to congratulate you for the resistance your people showed and the fact that I personally, because I never went to Minneapolis, this is a big mistake, but I discovered that I discovered the warm, full hearts of people of Minneapolis. And I think what is very inspiring in your resistance to tyranny is the fact that you people, you showed up. You didn't wait for the leopard to whip off your own face. You showed up for your neighbors. You showed up for your community. You showed up for your relatives. And not everyone in the streets of Minneapolis was directly and immediately concerned by the matters. But people felt that they had to show solidarity. They had to be in the streets to protest peacefully and with some of a sort of creativity sometimes, as in Portland. But you showed that it was possible to say no. And it seems obvious when we say it like that out loud, but at some point, a lot of us in the world and maybe in your country could wonder if anyone will stand up and say no. And the population of Minneapolis said no, as in Europe, we have the Prime Minister of Spain who said no to Donald Trump. And sometimes you need one people, one mayor, one city, one part of the world to stand up and to show up and to say no in order to awake everyone. And I really hope that the fight of the Minneapolis population will continue in other cities in the United States and help people in all over your great cities to stay awake or to wake up.
Jacob, we have discussed the topic of preparedness. How can you prepare for a crisis? How can a city prepare for various types of crises? Do you think there is a way how you can prepare for something like ICE operations in a city, like what you have been through in Minneapolis?
Operation Metro Surge was not the first crisis that we experienced in Minneapolis. I was mayor during the murder of George Floyd and the subsequent unrest. And, I'll tell you, I'm not the same mayor as I was back then. I'm not the same person. You learn lessons that make you a better mayor and a better leader, and you use those lessons every single day. And so after the unrest that we experienced, we did a lot of emergency management preparation, making sure that everybody understood the system of communication that we were using, the national incident management structure. We ran simulations and practices until we were blue in the face to make sure that no matter what crisis occurred, we were prepared for it. And a lot of organic work happened throughout our neighborhoods. People made contact with their neighbors, and they understood how they would conduct themselves and organize during a time of crisis. We had contacts through a task force, and that task force enabled us to have direct communications with a number of different communities all throughout our city. And so, granted, you can never be entirely prepared just because you can't predict the future, but you can practice again and again and build relationships out ahead of time so that when difficulty or emergency does strike, you've got a team. And it's that team that can ultimately get the job done. Not just the city enterprise, not just the mayor's office, not just the police or our Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, but the whole city working together, hand in hand, facing the most difficult circumstances that the world could throw at you. And that's why being a mayor of a city and doing this work as people in neighborhoods is of so critical importance, because it's got to be a hand-in-hand approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to leave you with the idea that the cities should get together, that they should cooperate and stand up against authoritarian measures being imposed from the state level, and then they can finally achieve their goals. So thank you once again very much for your time. Ladies, we fortunately here in Europe are not facing the same problems as Minneapolis, and we are here to discuss not only the resistance to authoritarian measures coming from the state level, but also the democratic resilience, which is part of the problem, and that's why I was trying to tackle the issue of social inequalities and housing shortage, which are very important problems and issues that cities are dealing with, and that can erode democratic resilience if they are not solved. So once again, I'm coming back to you, Femke. What approach to housing shortage has proven effective? If you can give us some lessons that we could learn. That's an easy one, isn't it?
No, still, I'm a little bit, I shy away from the question, and I'm sorry for it, but it's such a different question than the subject of the meeting. And again, I would like to say something in accordance with what the mayor from Minneapolis just said, because I always think that national, and then I answer your question too. Yeah. Yes, I will.
Thank you.
But I think that national populists, national autocrats always underestimate the wish of local citizens to live peacefully together and to work together and to cooperate. Because if we look at our cities, if it was during COVID, for instance, people came together, and of course in the last panel people said a lot of very sensible things about how we have to prepare as governors, as governing the cities. But we should never underestimate our citizens in the way they work together in a situation of crisis. We have a housing problem. And we also have a problem of over-tourism. And it's really, well, it starts to destroy the fabric of our city. In Amsterdam, every year, 23 million visitors enter the city. That's much more, if I may say so, than Barcelona, where the people rise against tourism. And I'm really jealous that they do in Barcelona, because I wish they did in Amsterdam the same way. But the huge amount of daily visitors in a city that exists of 1 million of inhabitants and is not so big in land, and 1/3 of the land is water. So we do not have a lot of choice. It alienates people from where they belong from. Our inhabitants alienate from their city if there are too many tourists, and combine it with the problem of housing. The majority of our youngsters in Amsterdam have to live with their parents until past 30. And especially when you're poor and you share your bedroom with your brothers and sisters, well, you get crazy. And your perspective on life is very bad. So what we try to do, we build and build and build. We try to build a lot of houses, especially for the young. We have a huge social housing program. 40% of what is built in the city is social housing. 30%, do I say it well? 30% is middle class. No, 40% social housing, 40% middle class, 20% for the rich people. So we really create houses for the poorest people.
And these are, excuse me, these are city developments. These projects are being developed by city and funded by city, or you have some agreements with private development?
It is also the private sector, but we try to regulate the private sector, and everybody knows that is very difficult. But sometimes we try to seduce them, we try to regulate them to follow our steps, because they also know that the resilience of a city rests in the young people staying in your city and the middle classes staying in your city. Every city dies in the long run when your police officers, your teachers, your healthcare workers have to leave the city. They are the fabric of your city. That is also, here I go back, I hope, to the they also create a democratic climate. And also the private sector knows that in the short run, they become rich in building for the rich. But in the long run, if the city loses its growth, loses its prosperity, they will also lose their profit. So we try to, well, find a way. And then on the other hand, we try to, well, get rid of some of the tourists, not all of them, but by regulating Airbnb. We do it together with Barcelona, amongst others. Try to regulate the platform economy in Europe, because that is really, creating problems. Well, I can give a lot of examples, but I don't want to consume too much of your time.
That was perfect. I'm just trying to. I always love the discussion when it is more about some practical examples that might serve as an inspiration for others. Maybe.
Well, I'm so sorry. May I add one more thing to it? I think inequality in cities, and my city suffers from inequality, not because people become more poor, because I think we still have a very good social system in place, but there are more and more rich expats entering the city. So the strain between the poor and the rich is becoming too big. And I think equality is the basis of freedom. If cities become too unjust, then they're also unfree.
Yeah. Absolutely. Debbie, I know that your work focuses on improving Londoners' life chances, boosting social integration, tackling poverty. And last year, the Mayor of London even launched the Loved and Wanted Fund, which invests in civil society and community organizations. I'd love to know a little bit more about it. How does it work in practice, and why does it matter?
So yes, thank you. So yes, we launched a fund and a campaign called Loved and Wanted last year on Valentine's Day, because we're corny that way, and it's something that emerged out of a series of riots and disorder which spread across parts of the country in the summer of 2024. 3 little girls were murdered. And as part of the grieving process, parents and family members wanted to come together to just remember what had happened to their daughters. And that moment of grief was infiltrated by far-right actors, because a series of misinformation posts went out via social media about the identity of the attacker, about what happened during the event. All of these statements were wildly untrue, but they fermented within the local population, and this was in Southport, which is in the north of England, a real level of hatred and anger. And over the space of around a week, there were riots and forms of disorder where some of the hotel accommodation which housed those seeking asylum was set on fire with people inside. People were chased from their cars. Mosques were attacked. People were, and this was all happening live streamed on social media. And if we consider that this was during the month of July, so all of the children weren't in school, and so all of this activity was being watched by the nation. And in the midst of all of this chaos, the national government decided that what it would do would be to crack down on the rioters, on the looters, and tell them that they would be found wherever they were, and they did arrest the vast majority of them. A huge number of those arrested were under the age of 16. And whilst all of that was occurring, the Mayor of London put out a very simple post at the time, to say that in London, where there was no disorder, there were no riots, but in London, regardless of where you are from, your background, your walk of life, the God you worship, the language that you speak, London will always be a place where you are loved and wanted. And so we decided to make a campaign out of his words. And it is quite literally both a campaign and a fund. Gives grants. It's an activation moment where we have inspired community organizations, local authorities to come together underneath this banner to just remind people of their basic humanity, of the values of kindness and compassion, which we know the vast majority of people uphold. And to remind everyone of those common values of decency, but also allyship and solidarity. It was something which, at the time that we launched it, was something that was seen as incredibly important and timely for anyone who managed to see a poster at a bus stop or to see a social media post at the time, because it was the only reference to unity, whilst there was a broader approach on looking up lots of children, but also trying to counter a lot of the disinformation which was circulating at the time. And during September of last year, at the same time that Donald Trump came to the UK for his state visit, while he was in Windsor, we just launched a very simple video, which was just about talking. It was basically talking about knowing your neighbor, the similarities that we share, everything that is important about being someone who is part of a city which is so vibrant. And we launched it during that week, and it was launched immediately after 150,000 people had come to the streets of London in support of a far-right agitator. His name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon. He's also known as Tommy Robinson. He is wanted by various agencies for a variety of misdemeanors. But 150,000 people came to London to support him. And Elon Musk gave a speech in which he reaffirmed lots of tropes and falsehoods about migrants and about people of colour. And so we launched this very, very simple video about the Loved and Wanted campaign, and we were inundated by people who said, at that moment, in the midst of what we had seen on the streets of London, in the midst of what we knew was represented by Donald Trump coming to London to hang out with the King, this was what we wanted to see and hear. And I don't think I can overstate the role that cities play, the role that city leaders play in being able to ensure that in the midst of both a crisis but also at a time of growing insecurity and chaos, that sending out a very simple message of unity, the impact that that can have both for an ally, but also even more importantly for those communities who are embattled and continuously dehumanized by the rhetoric that we see, the impact that that has is amazing. And I know that that was why, at that time, so many individuals, so many people, so many communities were incredibly grateful to us and to Sadiq for being the leader in the midst of what is happening in the UK to send that message of hope to everyone.
Yeah, well, achieving unity and the feeling of belongingness is very much related also to the problem of tackling poverty and social integration. What are the biggest challenges that are you facing right now in London in respect to these problems?
So, I mean, you won't be surprised to know we had an election last week, and it was a particularly difficult election in the UK. There is a party called Reform UK. It's led by a millionaire called Nigel Farage, who was also the leader of the UK Independence Party, which led the removal of the UK from the European Union, so led to Brexit. And his party picked up the largest share of the vote last week. And in parts of both England and Wales and Scotland, there are councils which are now being run by a party which bases itself on Donald Trump. It is very anti-democratic. It has said quite openly that if Reform UK is to gain power over the country, that it will punish those parts of the country that refuse to vote for it. London will be one such city. And it will ensure that those who do not support it recognize that they will be much poorer less popular as a result of their lack of allegiance towards that political party. The reason that I mention this as being one of the biggest issues is because I think until very recently, because it is such a far-right organization, because many of those who are members of it say things which are so politically unpleasant, that we didn't take as seriously, I think, the risk and the threat that they pose. And the polls that are continuously held in the UK suggest that if there is to be there will be a general election in 2028, that the Reform UK party is more than likely to win, and that Nigel Farage will be our next Prime Minister. And for a city which is as progressive as ours, it fills us with dread. But also because we know that part of its popularity is the way in which it weaponizes social media, and because of the way in which untruths are spoken openly and loudly and are believed very fully by those who went out and voted for the party last week. It feels as though the fight that we have on our hands is both an existential one as well as a physical one. We are obviously prepared for the fight. We know that in London, at least in that election last week, Reform did not make as much of a political gain as was perhaps predicted. But then at the same time, we do recognize that the impact that it is having on our communities is quite visceral. And our responsibility to those communities and those people is to ensure that they know that for as long as we are running the city, that they are safeguarded and that they are safe. And this election is also happening at the same time as a very sudden and continued attack on Jewish communities in London. And so over the past 2 weeks, we have had firebomb attacks outside synagogues. Jewish charities have been attacked. We have had Jewish services, ambulances have been set on fire. And so London feels at the moment as though it is a target of various levels of hatred coming from a variety of different directions. And so it does mean that we have to ensure that we are shoring up as much as possible the continued reassurance, even in the face of everything that is going on around us, to ensure that we are doing all we can to counter as much as we can that both metaphysical, existential, but also physical risk and threat that is being targeted towards us.
The rise of far right is a general problem basically in the whole Europe, and they've been weaponizing the same problems in all countries. Very often, these are the problems with social injustice, social inequalities, and these politicians propose their false solutions to these problems that they can never deliver when they get to power. So, Audrey, my question to you is that whether you believe that democratic resilience in cities depend on solving these social problems and social exclusion.
Yes, I think it depends on solving the inequality matters. I think we really have to address the matter of inequality and unfairness. I think all of the main issues that we are facing in our modern era are based on the feeling of inequality and the reality of unfairness, but because we really live in a very unfair world. And, you know, this feeling of unfairness and the reality of it drove a lot of revolutions in the past In France, for example, in 1789, the revolution, yes, was led mainly by the middle class, an educated middle class, but also with the support and the help of the church and of what we call the tiers état, which would be the less fortunate, the poorest in the country, and the modest layers of the social scale. And I think that this feeling and reality of unfairness and inequality and social injustice is what the far right is using as a powerful tool and lever in order to gain the hearts of the poorest of our population or the middle classes, and it's because they want to maintain those inequalities that a lot, not all of them, but a lot of rich people, of rich companies in the world are supporting the far right. But it's a scam. It's a very big scam, because if far right is using it in order to fuel the hate and the rejection of anyone who doesn't looks like you, the far right doesn't really address the subject. The far right never took care of the poorest in the population. They never had really addressed the question of inequality of unfairness. I'd like to take an example with the subject of climate change. In all of our countries, we have leaders of the far right who are pretending that that climate change is a hoax and it's against the poorest and it's against the lower scale, the lower layers of the society, and it's the contrary. It's the opposite, because the climate change accelerates unfairness and inequality. The poorer you are, the less greenhouse gas emission you emit, but the more fragile you are in front of the consequences of the climate change, of global warming. But you feel that you are lectured by people like all of us here, well-educated people, people with middle or high incomes, and actually we are and they are, even if we make a lot of efforts, we are and they are obviously the main responsible of the problem. Even if I am an ecologist, I do a lot of effort in my life, in my daily life. I do a lot of effort in order to reduce my impact on the environment. But just because I have more incomes than a lot of French people, with my consumption, with the life I live, with the plane I can take, the planes I can take, I actually emit more greenhouse gas emission than the vast majority of French people. Even if I do a lot of effort, and when I lecture them about greenhouse gas emission, they can tell me, okay, lady, you're very nice, but what are you doing for addressing the problem? So what can we do as city, as political responsible? We can implement policies in order to have affordable and ecological housing for people with low incomes. We can implement policies, and that's what we do in Paris, in order to make sustainable food affordable, in order to make healthcare affordable, and in order to organize the city, the public transportation for anyone with any incomes can use it and afford it. And I think the city scale it's the good scale to do it, and that's why we are gathered today. The far right, they do the opposite. What do they do when they arrive and when they are leading cities or countries? First thing, they cut off the funds for education, for public transportation, for public services. Yeah. They cut off policies of equality. So they do the opposite, but they make us believe that they are the good one in the room. It's not true. So I think we have the responsibility, and we're humbly trying to do it in Paris, to address the matter of inequalities and the matter of ecological transition in a way that we are at the service, we serve people with low incomes, with middle class incomes, in order to rebalance things.
But for many cities, it is a question of not having enough financial resources for something like this.
Yes, and that's why we ask the European Union to stop with this plan of putting in the hands of the states all the foundings of Europe, and we want that cities being respected and that we want that European Union take care of our advice and our opinion about all of this.
Absolutely, and the cities should be an equal partner to Brussels. Thank you very much, ladies. I'm really happy that I can see that we already have Gina Marie Ortiz-Jones, Mayor of San Antonio, Texas, with us. Welcome. Welcome.
Hi, folks. Good to be with you. You'll have to I'm not normally so casually dressed, but our San Antonio Spurs, Wemby from France, is leading the way. We're very excited to be cheering on our team. So it's really engulfed the entire city at this point. But I'm so honored to spend some time with you today.
Thank you. It's absolutely perfect. Thank you so much for being with us. Let me get straight to the subject. I know that ICE. We've been talking about ICE activities in American cities. And now we will continue with you. I know that ICE remains active in San Antonio, and the agency plans to open a new detention facility in September, capable of holding 1,500 people, and all this is going on despite the city council's opposition. So I would like to ask you, what impact will the opening of this detention facility have on the city and economy of San Antonio?
Yeah, well, thanks again. It's a real honor to join you and be part of this very important conversation as we strengthen the connections across like-minded communities against everything from authoritarianism to ensuring people can be heard just basically at the voting at the poll, rather, to when they cast their ballots. But so let me paint a bigger picture though, and then I'm going to answer your question directly. Yeah. Right? San Antonio is the 6th largest city in the entire United States. We are the 2nd largest in Texas. We are also a majority-minority community, which is 65% Hispanic. I personally am a proud Filipino American, but grew up here in San Antonio. San Antonio is also Military City USA. We have a large military presence in our community, and so we have a unique appreciation for folks that serve and the large percentage of veterans in our community. We are, unfortunately, the 3rd most impoverished city in major city in the country. We are the most economically segregated. And so one of the points I've really tried to stress about what these where these activities will take place is, to your point, the impact on our economy. I think while ICE activities are federal immigration enforcement activities, we also have the added layer of what our state leadership is looking to do. And at times, the state rules are actually more restrictive in what they require us to do when it comes to assistance of federal immigration, different than, for example, what even my colleague, Mayor Frey, would deal with in his own state, given, again, the state laws that govern his actions. So I think that's an important piece. And in fact, many of the things that you're seeing in other parts of the country, we have had in Texas for much, much longer already, right? So that's one. But we did recently take a step as a city council, a step that we could take, right? As we are balancing, again, balancing public safety with public trust. We have also seen, though, other communities, Houston, for example, just 3 hours away from us, they took a step that the state did not agree with, and the governor threatened to take their money, a significant amount of money. And if you're watching anything about what's happening in the US right now, we're dealing, unfortunately, with a significant decrease of federal funding and decrease of funding at the local level as well, just given the economy. And so there's a real balance here as we, again, are trying to navigate through this time. Of course, treat everybody in our community with dignity and with respect, while we are also trying to make sure that any actions that we might take don't disproportionately invite recourse or retribution against the already most vulnerable in our community. Okay. So one step that we took just a couple of weeks ago, we've asked our city staff to help us understand what are those things under state law that we can do. One of the things that we could do is zone these private detention facilities in certain areas. And that's really important. In Texas, we don't have an income tax. We only have a tax on the property that somebody owns. So while, again, we oppose this on a number of levels, moral, civil rights, et cetera, there's a real reality as well, is that if we are not thoughtful about where we zone these facilities, they could in fact depreciate the property tax all throughout our city, right? Which then contributes to some of our financial challenges, which is why that was such an important step. Not only does it allow for distance requirements from churches and schools, et cetera, what it also does is allow us sufficient notification as a municipality to understand who is coming in, what they may need, et cetera. Unfortunately, there's not, again, when you're dealing with a federal entity, there's very little leeway that we have, again, because it's federal action. But we are trying to do as much as we can to, as best able, minimize the impact. One of the things I did as part of that as well is I wanted to hear from our business community. This is a game of addition, not subtraction, right? How can we show a very united front at the local level about our opposition to this, for which there are myriad reasons, right? So really hearing from the business community, because as we are trying to attract investment to our community, I would just actually return from Taiwan a couple of weeks ago, and they have got $250 billion ready to invest on top of another $50 billion just in defense. So given the industries in our community, we are ripe for that partnership and for that investment. And so if we're not thoughtful about where these federal immigration activities are happening, we could decrease our competitiveness for those kinds of investment. I really want to hear from the business community, and I heard from certain parts of our business community, those that represent businesses on the east side and on the south side of our community. To me, I wasn't super surprised, because we are so economically segregated, which in America means you're also segregated along racial and ethnic lines. I wasn't surprised that I heard from those business leaders from those parts of town in particular, because when those kinds of activities come into our community, they normally set up shop, yes, on the black side of town and on the largely Hispanic and more impoverished part of town on the south side. So, but at least putting them on the record, say, hey, as business leaders, this is how we think it's going to impact us, because there are lots of folks saying, well, this is going to bring jobs. Like, what coffee shop is going to set up next to an ICE facility? Please tell me. Like, that's not a thing, right? So we need to inject reality, and as many of our stakeholders that can help share that message is where we want to be. So I have also expressed, again, my interest with this new DHS leader, the importance of being more transparent in communications. All that transaction happened, and we did not receive one formal notification from a federal authority related to that, and that does not in any way bode well. So, we're dealing with what we can, we're managing through it, and frankly reminding people that at the end of the day, we are living through the results of an election, and if we want something better, we will also have to have different outcomes at the upcoming election. And I'm happy to talk about what we're doing on that front as well at the local level to ensure that we protect our rights to vote, frankly.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that you have some ways to do something about the effects of ICE operation, and that center detention facility that is being that is going to be built. But just let me conclude. In general, do you believe that if the mayors, the cities get together, that they really can push back much better against these authoritarian practices that Trump's administration is imposing on you through ICE?
I think it's important that we always look to collaborate with our cities. This is actually it's a nonpartisan seat, and I think many of my colleagues are also running in nonpartisan, running as nonpartisan officials, or the seat is nonpartisan. And in fact, these issues are not partisan, right? I think we want to make sure we're balancing public safety with public trust. We're balancing economic development with the other needs of our community. And so I think it's always important that we collaborate, both, of course, with our American partners, as well as with those, like many countries in Europe that have a long history, unfortunately, with authoritarianism. And we know our history, and we learn from it, and we try to understand the ways in which some of the parallels we're seeing now, we know how this story could end, right, if we're not careful. So we're certainly trying to have that thoughtful conversation here in San Antonio, and thankful to be part of this one here today.
Thank you very much, Mayor Jones. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for being with us. Yeah, and thank you, ladies. Unfortunately, our time is up, and we don't have any more minutes left. I think that we have covered a really large scope of topics. I'm sure that we could continue much longer with our discussion, but unfortunately, we have to finish right now. So thank you very much once again for your contributions, and thank you for your attention. And let me wish you a very pleasant evening. Bye-bye.